Today, we're diving into an absolute earthquake in Australian cybersecurity. We're talking about the massive July 2026 Origin Energy data breach. I mean, when Australia's largest energy retailer gets compromised, everybody feels the shockwaves. It's the kind of event that triggers instant panic, mass confusion, and an endless stream of headlines. But our goal right now is to cut right through all of that noise. We're going to look strictly at the facts, break down exactly what happens, and uncover what this actually means for you. So let's untangle the facts from the panic. We're going to move through this systematically, starting with the July 2026 breach itself, what was actually stolen, the hacker and their ransom demands, the real danger to customers, and finally, Origin's response and remediation. All right, part one, the July 2026 breach. To really grasp the gravity of this, you got to look at the sheer scale. Origin Energy maintains roughly 4.8 million customer accounts across electricity, gas, internet, the whole shebang. But the crucial number we need to focus on right here is 900,000. That is the approximate number of current and former customers who had their records accessed and exfiltrated by hackers. Sure, it's a fraction of their total user base, but 900,000 people, that is a staggering amount of data suddenly out in the wild. And it's crazy how fast this escalated. In early July 2026, Origin gets these initial indicators of a threat. But based on what they knew right then, they flagged it as not credible. Well, scratch that, because on July 22nd, new forensic evidence drops. This wasn't a false alarm. Authorized threat actors were literally inside their systems. Boom. The very next day, emergency containment kicks in, and they formally disclose the incident to the ASX. By July 28th, Origin's CEO Frank Calabria is publicly apologizing and confirming the massive scale. Within just a few weeks, we go from an unverified blip on the radar to a full-blown national crisis.
Okay, moving on to part two. What was actually stolen?
Now, this is where we have to cut through the sensationalism. When you hear breach, your immediate thought is probably, oh no, my entire life is exposed, right? Well, the hackers did snag personal details. We're talking full names, addresses, dates of birth, phone numbers, and energy account numbers. They also grabbed some partial financial data, specifically the last 4 digits of credit cards, BSBs, and the last 3 digits of bank accounts. But here's the absolutely vital contrast. The true keys to the castle are still secure. Origin confirms that full payment card numbers, complete bank account details, CVV codes, account passwords, and government IDs like passports, absolutely none of that was compromised. And that brings us to a massive sigh of relief. Hackers absolutely cannot use this partial data to pull funds directly. They just can't use those little fragments of information to execute an unauthorized transaction and drain your bank account. Your money sitting in your account is totally safe from a direct automated digital heist. Part 3, the hacker and ransom. But listen, just because they can't directly drain accounts doesn't mean these attackers are walking away empty-handed. First off, their true identity, their group name, where they even are in the world, still entirely unconfirmed by law enforcement. But once they got the data, they slapped Origin with a ransom demand, threatening to leak the whole data set. And here is where it gets really interesting. There's a glaring discrepancy. Origin's forensic teams confirmed 900,000 affected customers. The hackers, they claimed they had data on a whopping 2 million. It's a classic extortion playbook. Inflate the numbers, create maximum panic, and turn up the heat. And these threat actors didn't just bluff. To force Origin's hand, they went straight to the Australian media, like ABC News, with concrete proof of the intrusion. They sent over actual screenshots from inside Origin Energy's internal administrative systems, plus a real sample of 50 compromised customer records. They essentially held up a megaphone saying, "We are inside and we mean business." So, how exactly did they get in? Well, the exact method isn't public yet, but forensic teams are looking at a few standard vectors. A massive suspect is credential stuffing. It's fascinating, honestly, and kind of terrifying. Hackers take leaked username and password combos from old, totally unrelated breaches, maybe an old forum or social media site, and just automate them against Origin systems. They're basically hoping an employee reused an old password. And shockingly, studies show over 50% of people reuse the exact same password everywhere. That's exactly the loophole hackers count up. Another highly likely entry point under investigation is phishing, or credential harvesting. This one relies entirely on the human element. Attackers use targeted social engineering and deception to trick an Origin employee into just handing over their valid credentials. Think about it. No matter how impenetrable your firewalls are, if you can trick a human into handing over the keys, you just walk right through the front door. They're also checking if unpatched software played a role, but the human element is huge here.
Which brings us to part 4, the real customer danger.
Okay, we know they can't directly steal your money with the partial data they have. So what's the actual danger to those 900,000 people? Cybersecurity experts emphasize that the real threat is social engineering and spear phishing. Let's break down the exact anatomy of this scam. Step 1, the scammer grabs your leaked name, address, and those partial card numbers. Step 2, they contact you, convincingly impersonating Origin Energy or your bank. Step 3, and this is the trap, they quote your authentic partial details back to you to build trust. Step 4, once you completely believe they're legit, you're tricked into revealing your full passwords, handing over CVV codes, or you end up actively transferring the funds yourself. And this right here is exactly why it matters to you. We call these authentic trust signals. Look, if a random stranger calls asking for money, you just hang up. But if they say, "Hi, calling from Origin Energy about your property at this exact address," just to verify, "Can you confirm the card ending in these specific 4 digits?" I mean, that sounds incredibly legitimate, right? These authentic trust signals make this specific type of targeted scam insanely deceptive and dangerous.
Finally, part 5, Origin's response and remediation.
So the breach happened, the data's out there, and scammers are circling. How is Origin actually fixing this mess? Well, they rolled out a pretty massive, comprehensive response strategy right out of the gate. First up, forensic containment. They brought in external cybersecurity specialists to patch the systems and basically ensure the hackers were locked out for good. Then they took it to a national security level, cooperating with the Australian Federal Police, the Cybersecurity Center, and privacy regulators. For the customers, they fired off direct emails and SMS notifications so people knew exactly what was exposed. They set up dedicated phone support for panicked customers, and critically, they offered credit and identity monitoring resources to help protect those 900,000 people moving forward. To wrap this explainer up, this breach leaves us staring down a pretty massive implication. We've just seen that hackers don't even need your full bank details to pose a serious threat to your security. As scammers get more and more sophisticated at weaponizing these little fragments of our digital lives, it leaves us with a terrifying question. When your own true details are used against you, how do you truly verify who is on the other end of the line? Thanks for joining me on this explainer. Stay vigilant out there, question every unexpected request for your data, and keep learning.